Hello everyone, Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, bang on time tonight. One moment. Just get the old JD out. Wednesday evening wouldn't be Wednesday evening without a glass of Jack Daniels. With ice, of course. Well, hello everybody. Who have we got? Oh, let me put your thing up. Malcolm, hello. Good evening. Looking forward to tonight's Cortina stories. Yeah, you know something. We're really pushing the boat out tonight because we're gone back to 1970. That's a flipping long time ago. But I thought I would bring tonight up for the simple fact I used to own, I've actually had 3 Mark III Cortinas in my time, and they were one of my favourite cars. I mean, this was a long time ago, but I used to like them. I know they were rust buckets, but I did like them. Anyway, can't remember last time I saw a Mark III. It's been that long. Had a 2-litre GXL back in the late 80s in a bronze metallic. Funny that, because that's what I had, a GXL. It was the bronzy, dark bronze metallic colour. I wasn't too keen on that colour, you know. It was all right, but it had the black vinyl roof. It was a nice car. The only thing I really didn't like about it was the dashboard, the wedge. It sort of like went away from you. It was like flipping heck. Later on I got a 1970. Mind you, the one I had, the bronzy one I had, it was, I believe it was a 1971 or 72. It's a K reg anyway. Later on I got a N reg, the old N reg, 1974. With the revised dashboard. But yeah, but anyway, I wanted to go on a little bit about the Mark III Cortinas tonight, because it's like they deserve their place in history. They were a good car. I won't go back any further than that because I never had a Mark II. I did used to like the Mark I and Mark II Cortinas, but they were too early for my time anyway. So anyway, thank you for dropping by, Malcolm. Who else have we got? Hello, Paul. How are you? Buffering. I get a lot of buffering here, especially on this computer. It's called the spinning pinwheel of death. Especially when the internet takes a shit, and it has done. Mind you, I'm on EE. It's actually not bad. No, I'm not. No, that's the old one. It's Talk now. They've been pretty good. They've been pretty good. Talk have. No, I was going to swap. I was going to swap my internet supplier, and the guy from Talk, he rung up, literally rung me up, and I got to speak to a real person, believe it or not. And he convinced me to actually stay with Talk and done me a much better deal, and I got it cheaper as well than what I was paying. So I thought, I said to the guy on the phone, do you know what, mate? You're a bloody good salesman, because I was going. I wasn't coming back. I made my mind up, and you changed my mind. And he did, and I'm glad to stay, actually. Anyway, let me carry on. Anyway, Paul, hello. Good evening to you. Hello, Chris. Had one once, bought new. You bought a new one? Flipping heck, you must have had a few pennies in your back pocket. A lesson learned, I would rather walk junk. Well, I guess so. If you can afford a new Mark III Cortina, I'm sure you could have afforded much better cars. They were, I don't know. There were much better cars in the market at the time. If you didn't have a Cortina Mark III, you'd have probably gone for the Granada. They were a nicer car. They were better to drive, but I could never afford a Granada. But anyway, let me carry on. Who else have we got? Hello, Sam. Just bought a Ford Transit Connect. Yes. We'll be seeing that, wouldn't we? The only thing that bothers me with them Connects with the 1.8 engine is, have they got the wet belt on them? You'll have to phone up Ford, your Ford parts supplier, give them your registration number and say, has this got a wet timing belt in the lower crankcase? And if it's a no, then you're laughing. If it's a yes, then that's going to be an expensive job. So, yeah. CPU basher, flipping heck. Hello, how are you? That's a flipping name, isn't it? CPU basher. Is that when the chips don't work right? Bloody work. CPU, that's in a computer, isn't it? B-face computing. I thought, you know what? I'm hearing a lot of new names tonight. Hello, how are you? How are you? I'm doing great. It's Wednesday. It's my favourite night of the week. This is the night of the week I get to talk load of bollocks for about an hour. But it tends to keep a few people happy. Plus I get to drink my Jack Daniels. Hello, Tony. How are you? It's that time again. Flipping out, I'm not sure I can say your name. Lustinian. Is that it? Lustinian? Hi, how are you? Have they been reliable? Has what been reliable? Do you mean the Mk3 Cortina? I don't think they were that reliable back then. They broke down a lot, especially if they weren't maintained well. Even if they were maintained, they still broke down. But back then, that was all the fun. Stephen France, hello. Never had one. Well, you probably haven't missed much, I can say that. It's one of those things. It's like I don't know. Say you owned a Vauxhall Corsa when you were sort of like a teenager, and it was you had fond memories of that car. You had a lot of good times in it. That's the kind of thing it is. That's all it's about. I had a few Cortinas back in the day. I had a 1967 Vauxhall Viva HB. That was an absolute death trap. No word of a lie. There were 4 of us in this Vauxhall Viva. And we were doing, do you know what? We were doing about 20 miles. It could be more than 20 miles an hour. And this Viva, it had inner tubes in the tyres. You know, they weren't bloody, you know, they had inner tubes. And we went around this corner, this country bend, and it was like a right-angled corner. And one of the tyres just blew out. And we just done a 180-degree skid in the middle of the road. Both the wheels hit the grass verge on the side, and the whole car lifted up with all 4 of us in it, and we nearly rolled into a ditch. But just as it sort of like tipped up, it just tipped up to the point where it come back down its wheels. That car was, I've got quite a few stories of that Vauxhall Viva, mate. I'll probably go into that another time. Anyway, thank you for joining the live stream, Stephen. Tony, hello. I had loads of Cortinas, void bush hell. They're the bushes that sit on top of the axle. I've changed many of them in my time, right? I even used to have the tool. You know, you could go out and buy the tool to change the bushes, but chances are you would bugger up the tool as well because they were so tight coming out. Flipping nightmare, I know. I had a mate who tried to change the bushes. I can't remember what it was. No, I don't think it was the void bushes. He couldn't do that. It was the trailing arm bushes. He tried it in a vice in his shed and snapped the bloody vice in half. But no, them void bushes, they were a right. They got knocked out so bloody quickly, didn't they? You were forever changing them. And if you didn't bother, the whole axle was like bump, 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 bump. Yeah. I remember those days lying on your back underneath the car. Hello, Mark. How are you? It's a good evening, okay? Yep. Look at it. Guru. Sorry, I'm not very good with names, but hello. Thank you for joining the live stream. Cortina night tonight, Mk3 Cortina. CPU basher. My first car was a Mk3 2-litre GT in Modena green. It was fitted with the banana manifold. That's the 4-branch manifold. Nice, sweet. And a single Weber. Ooh, a Weber carburetor. I remember them. I used to have a Weber carburetor on my 2-litre Pinto, and my I used to have a 2.2 litre. Well, it was a 2-litre. It'd been bored out to about 2.2 litre. It had a balanced and lightened flywheel and crankshaft. If you put that car in 4th gear, because it only had 4 forward gears, if you put it in 4th gear at 30 miles an hour, it would probably conk out on you. But if you flipping floored it, it used to fly. It absolutely moved, that car did. Until the oil started spraying out the bloody tailpipe, and then followed by clouds of smoke, and then that was the end of it. But yeah, nice. GT, the Grand Tour. Or was it the Grand Touring? They had some good sort of like catchy names back then. GT, the like Grand Tour, that was the sporty one. Nice. The one I couldn't afford. Oh, nice topic tonight. First car was a Mk4 in green, £75. Hey, that's when second-hand cars were cheap. Tell you something, my first car, I'm going back to my Viva HB 1967, that was £25. Well, I guess £25 back then was a lot of money. That was before I even had a driving licence. I used to drive that car around all the time. No insurance, tax, MOT, nothing. But you know, you do these things when you're sort of like an idiot and too young. Yeah. I wonder where that car is now. Please, can you help me with advice? I need your opinion. When I work down the list, I'll get to your question. I get really bad service with EE on the phone. It often says 4G, full bars, or 5G, full bars, but the internet doesn't work and I am paying. How much? Jesus Christ! £118 a month because I went with the S20 Ultra. Blimey, I'm on the bargain basement package here. I tell you, I'm paying like £23 a month, something like that. I don't think it's even that. I think it's just over £20 a month. But I haven't got nothing special. I have got all I wanted. I don't want no phone line here. I don't want a landline. I told them all I want is internet. Just give me internet. None of the bullshit, none of the glamour, none of the glitz. That's all I've got is internet. And it's okay. It's all right if you're downloading stuff or watching stuff. If I'm doing an upload, say I'm uploading a video, then it kind of like ain't got much bandwidth noting me because it's sort of like all the other computers stall out then. If the kid's on the computer upstairs, it starts buffering and God knows what. So, and that's quite a fast. If I do a download speed, I'm probably getting 6 to 8 megabytes a second, which I mean for me that's pretty fast. I know that's slow for some people, but yeah, I don't know. Whenever I have an outage and the internet goes down, I look on the EE site. It shows you the map, doesn't it, of all the hotspots, and I always see hotspots every time. Like there's always problems with it all over the place. But I've had very few, touch wood. So yeah, everyone's got some good and bad stories with Talk, all the internet companies, I guess. They're probably all as bad as each other. I went through about 4 to 5 back axles on my Mk3s due to attempt emptying burnout. Yeah, I did replace my back axle once. That was on my 1974, and that was just the E model. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the executive. I never had an executive. It was the L model. Sorry, the E on the facelifted Mk3 Cortina. What's that? 1973. They came out. They had the better dash, didn't they? They had a nicer dash, which followed on to the Mark IV and Mark V Cortina. Yeah. Do you know something? I used to take the back axle off my Cortina. I can't remember if I think I did replace it, but I bought a new axle because there was something wrong with my axle. I can't remember what. But I painted it all in like blue, and it wasn't just an ordinary blue. It was like glitter blue, and all new brake pipes and everything all done nicely. So when a car was shining its headlights underneath my car, it looked all very nice. You know, you kind of done them things back then. But they weren't the best of axles, were they? They used to sort of like wear out. Even the wheel bearings weren't even nice. I'm not too sure about the wheel bearings. Weren't they like the Morris Marina ones on the shaft? You've got to take the whole shaft out, and they're right down the end of the bloody shaft. Yeah. At the plot, GXL was my first car. Ah, that was mine as well, a GXL. I'll tell you something, that had the vinyl roof, didn't it? Was it, that was the early one, was it? Was it like the, where's the dash gone, the wedge dash? Or was it the later one after 73? I'm not sure. Anyway. Void bushes were always knackered on mine. Yeah. Well, no sooner than you put them in, then you had to put a new set in. It's sort of like, they didn't last 5 minutes. I know they do all sort of like poly bushes for them now, but I can't even remember it that long ago, whether they done poly bushes for them back then. I'm sure they did, but they were probably more money, so you didn't bother buying them. Overclocking. Always remember going down to Morecambe in my uncle's Mark II in orange. Flipping it, I'll tell you what, I could tell a story in all of these, because I had an orange one. I didn't do much with it. I think I sort of like had it for spare parts. I stripped it and just used it to build up another one. It was a bit beaten up. In fact, my 1971 K-Reg Mark III, it was a 1600 Kent engine, overhead valve. And when I got it, the car was basically okay, apart from the paintwork wasn't great, but it had a knocking in the engine, it had a loud tapping in the engine. And where I used to live, I literally took the engine out with one of these engine hoists that I'd borrowed, and I took the engine apart to try and find this noise. And when I got the cylinder head off, then I had to take the sump off, and I eventually took the pistons out. It was one of the pistons, a lump of the piston skirt had broken off from the actual piston, and I had to put a new piston in. And I was really happy that day I put it all back together because it was running lovely after that. But by God, it was clattering, so I had to do it. Yeah, that was the old 1600cc Kent engine, overhead valve job. I never actually remember seeing a 1.3 version in them cars, because a 1300 engine would have been a bit underpowered, even for one of them. I have a Mondeo Mark IV 2008 2.2. I've changed the tyre pressure sensors in all my wheels, and now I don't receive any data on my dashboard. What I can do about that? Well, as far as I'm aware, I know on the Mark Vs, you've got to have this little handheld tool. It's like a little battery operated tool with buttons on it. And you have to literally go around the car and press this at each wheel to activate the sensors. So it's kind of like if you fit a new sensor, if the car's tyre sensor computer doesn't recognise that sensor, you have to program it in, so to speak, by sending a radio frequency to it. That's what they'll do at the Ford garage. They'll connect their scanner up to your car's computer, ECU diagnostic port. They'll go into like tyre pressure monitoring system. Then they'll have this little handheld tool, and they'll start at the passenger front, and they'll press the button, and it will send a signal from to the tyre sensor. So the tyre sensor will communicate with the car to program it in. That's what you've got to do. That's probably why it's not working. The only other thing I can possibly think you can do is do a reset on your instrument pack. I'm sure you can reset your tyre pressure thing. But if it's not recognising the actual sensor, you'll probably have to get it programmed in with one of these handheld tools. On the Mark V Mondeo, we have to do them all the time. A lot of the time we'll change the sensors or change the wheels, and we've got to program them in. It's quite a simple thing to do as long as you've got the tool to do it with. But if you ain't got the tool to do it with, you'll probably have to go to a garage or someone who's got one tool to do it, and they'll do it for you. They'll obviously charge you for it. Hello, Lewis. We've got a Volvo in work at the moment with same problem that Mondeo had up a week with spinning water pump. Oh, has it got this Volvo? Has it got the same engine? Same Peugeot engine? Yeah, I had loads of them, flipping things. It's like I never had this on the Mark IV Mondeo, and it was the same. The Mark IV Mondeo, they had this similar awards, not the same, but it's similar. They have a plastic impeller, and yeah, I've never had one of them come loose. But on the Mark V Mondeo, I've had loads come loose. Of course, it's a pain, isn't it? Because you get sort of overheating problems, and if you don't know these things, you're kind of scratching your head why it's overheating. But obviously, when you do know, it's kind of like, yeah. It's still an expensive job to change it, though, isn't it? Robert, hello. I've owned a Mark III. I have owned 3 Mark IIIs, K&N Reg Saloons, and an L Reg Estate, all 1.6. I have also owned a Mark IV and 5. I think in 1.6 they were so underpowered, but my 2-litre Mark V was a lot better. Yeah. Oh yeah. The 2 litres. I mean, I had what was it? My 1600cc Mark III. I mean, that was nothing special, was it? But from that, the next car I got, which was a N Reg, I think it was 1974. That was a basic model. It was the L. Even though L, I believe it stood for luxury, it wasn't luxury. Although I did manage to get a set of sports seats for it, the black and white stripy seats. I can't remember where I got some scrapyard. That had a 1600 Pinto engine in it, so it was a bit of a step up from the overhead valve Kent engine. And I swapped that engine out for a 2-litre, and sort of like, wow, this is really good now, because it's sort of like, I mean, overhead cam back then was a big deal. If you had the overhead cam Pinto engine, it was like, wow, you've got an overhead camshaft engine. It's like, you don't say these things anymore, but back then it was sort of like, wow, that's a thing, isn't it? Because most cars back then were overhead valve, weren't they? It was sort of, this was new technology back then, wasn't it? But yeah, if you had a 2-litre Pinto engine, I mean, they were quite tunable, especially if you had some money to pay for them. A lot of people put like twin 45 DCOE carburetors on them, didn't they? Flipping heck. And a lot of Pinto engines, I know Z-Tech engines seem to be the thing today, but a lot of Pinto engines ended up in kit cars because they're pretty good. I've still got the crow's foot, 19mm crow's foot to adjust the tappets on them Pintos. It's somewhere in my toolbox. Hello, Chris. Granddad had one in the 70s, and that's as far as my Cortina experience went. Yeah. If you've never had one, you never had one, but if you have, you'll probably always remember it. By the way, before I go on any further, I just want to say the thumbnail to this video, that photograph belongs to Vivian Hughes. That was his Cortina. I can't tell with the photo whether it's actually yellow or orange, but he sent me that photo. He says that was my very first ever car. It was given to him by his uncle. It had 100,000 miles on it when he was given it, and he said it was a right old banger. And he said, but he said it was his first car. He was going through the Dartford Tunnel, and it took a shit on him. There was all steam coming out the bonnet where it obviously overheated and lost its water. And so from the Dartford Tunnel, it directed straightly to the scrapyard, and that was the end of it. He goes, that's my experience of the Mk3 Cortina. But he showed me the photo because that was sort of like, that was his first car. Despite it was a banger, it was his first car, so he'll always remember it. I wasn't actually keen on the single headlights. I did like the twin round headlights at the front and the GXL models, I believe they were. I had one, and on the facelifted one after 1973, they put like rectangular headlights in. I wasn't even keen on them either. I found a pair of twin rectangular headlights out of a Nissan pickup, and I put them in my Mk3 Cortina, made them fit. And then it looked apart. Anyway, hello, Craig. You still on the same bot I am? I've made it last because I don't go out and buy the alcohol myself. So, but mind you, after the kid got to it, I mean, he must have knocked about sort of like that much out of it. So, but yeah, it's lasting well. My dad had Mk3 Cortina in beige and Mark IV in rust red. Was forever having to change bushes on the back, if I remember. Yeah. They would be the void bushes. They were called void bushes. They should have just called them frequently changing bushes. Anyway, who have we got? Tony, hello. Used to lift the engine to put the cams in to save buying a gasket. Slide them in past the wipers. Do you know what? You're kind of bringing back a few memories here, because am I right? It's been a long time. It's been a bloody long time. But the camshaft on the Pinto engines, they had a spray bar, didn't they? They had a long spray bar that used to spray the oil onto all the cam lobes. And didn't they used to block up? They did. They used to block up, and you didn't know nothing was going wrong. And then you'll get a loud tapping, and you'll find that one of your cam lobes had worn out, and you would have to replace your camshaft. But of course, the camshaft came out the back, didn't it? It didn't come out the front by the pulley. It came out the bloody back. You had to make it awkward, didn't they? Yeah. Thanks for that. I remember that. I've had many of them bloody engines in the past with blocked up spray tubes, oil spray tubes. I have been subscribed to Alan for quite some time. I don't normally comment on his videos, but I enjoy his quirky style on his Mondeo repair videos. Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. The truth of the matter is, I'm just a bloody idiot. Yeah, do you want to laugh? I'm going to show you something I buy when I go to Iceland. If I can, yeah. You ready for this? Who buys these? Who buys these? Mr. Brain's faggots. I'll tell you something, pork fag, they are really tasty. That's why I buy them. But the problem is, I don't like the name faggot. So when I have to go to the till, especially if there's a woman at the till, I feel quite embarrassed buying them. I do, I actually feel embarrassed buying them. But I still buy them because I think they're tasty. They go nice with potatoes and broccoli and peas and that. Anyway, thank you, B-Face Computing. Lewis, yeah, he's a good YouTuber, to be fair, comes across as genuine. Cheers. Hello, Finn, over there in Ireland. How are you doing? I'm doing great. It's Wednesday night and I got my JD. I'm doing great. My father had a Cortina, hand painted white, and it had a Ford Transit petrol engine fitted in. Flipping heck. I couldn't even tell you what a Ford Transit petrol engine looked like back then. No bloody idea. But I'm sure it fitted. I mean, they've got a big enough engine bay, haven't they? So I'm sure you could have fitted quite a few variations of engines in there. Hi, Terry. Had a Cortina 2-litre GT. What a car. We know that the GT was like, that was the one to be seen in, wasn't it? The Grand Tour. That was like the quick one, the fast one, the nice one, the head turner. I guess you had to have a few bob in your back pocket then to afford one of them. I had the poverty model. I had the L. I'll tell you something though. I'll try and get through all your comments, but I'm gonna talk you through this. When I got rid of my 1971 K-Reg, because I wanted the newer version, the better one, the one with the nicer dash, the more modern dash. Do you think I could find one? For what I could afford, I couldn't find one. I eventually went to, in Cambridge, there was a farmer and he had this blue Mk3 Cortina L, and it was a 1974 and an end plate. No, sorry. It was 1975. It was a P. It was one of the later ones. The registration was Mk3 I still remember that registration today. 1975. He wanted £300 for that car, and I never had £300. So I offered him £200, and he told me to piss off. So I went away, and he phoned up a couple hours later, and he said, "Okay, I'll take it." And I went back there and got the car. But by the time I got home, I was itching because there was like straw and something in that car had bitten me all over my legs. Flipping, there must have been sort of like, I don't know, whatever was in the straw, some kind of insects. But when I got that car, I decided to do that car up. My whole plan was to make that car into something special. And at Marshall's at the time where I had access to a paint booth, a spray booth. And a guy there, Ken Payne, he used to be a sprayer, and he was a really good sprayer. And I stripped that car, everything out, windscreen, doors, the lot, put new wings on it, and he sprayed it, and it was in a dark blue colour with purple pearl mixed in with it, and they sprayed the lacquer over the top. I think if I remember rightly, it was a British Leyland colour. It was called Caribbean Blue, and he mixed the purple pearl in with it, And then, and do you know what? That was even glowing before he put the lacquer on it. And when he sprayed the lacquer over the top, remember this was in a proper heated spray oven. Once that lacquer went on that car, it was like, wow. It was literally blind. You know what? That night when I went out and I parked that car under some petrol station lights to get some fuel, it was, you could stand back from that car and it was like luminous. It was literally glowing. You would not believe how much that car glowed. Obviously, after a few days, it sort of like lost its glow, but wow, that was one fantastic paint job. It was immaculate, beautiful. Obviously, as time went on, the rust started coming through. No matter what you've done to them, it's like we bought brand new wings. We undersealed, sealed them properly, done everything properly, and the rust still come through. About a year later. Anyway, who have we got? Craig. I was wrong. It was beige Mark IV and rust red Mark V. That's all right. I get it wrong all the time. Don't worry about it. I never owned a Mark IV or a Mark V. I had friends who did own a Mark V, and they were nice cars. I wish I did own one, but I never did. I went from the Cortina to a Mark III Granada. That'll be for another night. Ian, Dad had Life on Maps. Car copper metallic bronze. Ooh. If that's the metallic bronze I'm thinking it's the same kind of metallic as a dark metallic bronzy colour. It weren't a bad colour. It's in fact the TC Harrison in Peterborough, when I went there sort of like a couple of months back, I think it was now, me and Kevin went up there for the car show. There was a Mark III Cortina in the showroom, and it still had the price on it, the original price of when it was brand new. And it was only, I can't remember what it is now, 1,000 something pounds, 1,600 pounds, something like that. And that was in that bronzy colour. And that car was absolutely mint. And it was just like the one I had, the black vinyl roof, except mine, that was an automatic, mine was a manual. I'll tell you something though, does anybody remember on these Mark IIIs, the prop shaft? At the front of the prop shaft, I think on the later models, they had like a rubber donut to save the back universal joint getting knocked out. The trouble is that front donut used to break all the time and chunks of it. I used to go driving down the A1 and I used to hammer them about them back in them days. You'd hammer the car and of course chunks of rubber would come off that donut. And I do remember a chunk coming off and I remember hitting underneath the car and then the whole car's like shaking like that because you need to get a new rubber donut and the prop shaft is so out of balance by the time it breaks apart. But I was forever changing them bloody donuts. Hi Mondo, how are you? Been thinning that whiskey down with water to make it last longer. No, I wouldn't do that. It wouldn't taste as good if I thinned it down in water. I'm trying to make it last, but it's not going to make it to Christmas. That's that's for sure. Anyway, good evening, Mondo. Good to see you. Lewis, latest video. I used to run my Mark III without the blue air filter housing because it sounded so good. You could put the Weber, remember them chrome air filters you could get, the ones you put a little bit of oil on, and yet they would bolt straight on top of the Weber carburetor. Like K&N air filters. They were like a oblong sort of thing, rounded sort of, and they were made to bolt straight on top of the Weber carburetor. Nice. I had one of them. Michael, my Mk3 I had in Daytona yellow, 1.6, and love this. Changed a knackered engine for £60 and gearbox for £15. Love to have it now. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? The trouble is the rust got to them. That was the biggest hindrance on them cars. They rotted away. And if you were lucky enough to own one and keep it garaged and in good condition, by God, it'd be worth a bit today. Ian, hello. Void bush problems are easily overcome nowadays. Change them all for polyurethane ones. I've had a set on my Mark 5 Cortina estate for 20 years. Bloody hell, they've done well. They actually advertise something that actually works. Yeah. I never did fit polyurethane bushes. I always kept getting the shit ones, the ones that didn't last 5 minutes. It's probably because I didn't know any better. Sam, I am with Free Mobile and no issues with the customer service, and I'm very happy with them and highly recommend them. Yeah, no, it's the same thing, isn't it? If you're with a company like an internet supplier and you get good service, I mean, 10 other people down the road might not get good service, but if you're getting good service and you're happy with what they're doing and what they're supplying to you, they're good. Then you will probably stay with them. Just like I'll tell you who I'm not happy with. This is who I'm not happy with. TV licensing again. This is the latest bullshit. Well, this is a bit of an old one now because it's sort of like, I should have showed this the other week. They go, will you be in on the 3rd of November? Yes, of course, TV licensing. I'll be in on the 3rd of November. I'll be waiting all day for you. What would you like to talk about? Well, as there is no record of a TV license at your address, you should expect a visit. They've put enforcement officer, but they should have scribbled that off and they should have put a commission-driven salesman. You'll expect a visit from a commission-driven salesman. It may be on the 3rd of November or on another day. So what they're trying to tell me is, if I'd have waited in for them to have a little chat, they wouldn't have going to turn up anyway, because they could turn up any day. Well, there you go, TV licensing, BBC. Fuck off. Anyway, who's next? Hello, Mike. Iron Bro, Tim putting a tin gear on a Corsair. Flipping heck. By building a bonfire in the shed and using a pair of tongs. Try lying on back, placing that ring gear over your flywheel. Bloody hell. Nice one. Mondo. How much is a second-hand Pinto 2-litre engine these days? Hard to find 10 years ago when I had a kit car because of the banger F2 stock cars. Seemed they were all spoken for at scrapyards. Yeah, I can agree with that. I haven't looked for a Pinto engine, but I can imagine if you do try looking for one, you ain't going to find one. You might find a knackered one. Yeah, I used to like them engines. But it's like everything. After so many years, it's like everything's become collector's items, haven't they? They're only going to build these engines for so long, and by the time they all get sort of like blown up and destroyed and gone wherever they've gone, there's going to be a shortage of them. Tony, lift the engine to fit the camshafts as I was too tight to buy a head gasket. Used to do them as a foreigner in a couple of hours. Good earner. Yeah. Well, if you found a way around getting it out easily, it was like, do it. And that's what it was all about, wasn't it? Getting the job done as easily as possible and as cheap as possible. Because the thing is, if you were like me, you never had no bloody money back then anyway. It's like you had this old car, which was probably your pride and joy, and you wanted to make some money or whatever, or you wanted to fix it up. You ain't got the money to spend on all these, you know, doing it properly, taking it to garages and all that. You need to try and do it yourself. I also had Spax adjustable shock absorbers fitted all round, purchased from Ripspeed in North London. My wheels were Wolf Race Cobra slot mags, fitted with Firestone. Oh, nice. I bet that was a bloody head turner, wasn't it? You have to remember that these cars had coil springs all round. I know the front suspension was like double wishbone, wasn't it? It wasn't very good at all, but at least the back suspension was coil springs rather than leaf springs. There was a bit of an improvement. Talk in my parents' area near Leeds is crap, but Talk in my area, North London, is pretty good. In my parents' area, you would often have to turn the router on off. Yeah, I've had a few problems here, but I don't think it's actually Talk. It's been as the line that runs from the junction box to the house is the problem. It's happened a couple of times. And do you know something? The last time I had to deal with Talk, you have to go. It's always on a Sunday or a bank holiday. These things take a dump. I had to go through their computerized, their bloody. You know, you have to talk to a bot, didn't you? You got to talk to a bot, and I got so frustrated with it. I gave up in the end, and I thought, you know what? That's why I decided to change, because I could not get through to somebody. And talking to this bot was like, you'd go through a whole routine and you'll think you're just getting to the end of it, and they'll come to like, yeah, you have to press the button, you have to press the reset button. And I'm thinking, you freaking idiots, I've already pressed the reset button 20 times, it hasn't worked, for God's sake. And I gave up in the end. That's why I decided to change supplier. And it was only a day later, and a guy from Talk phoned me up. And he sent someone round straight away. Within that very day, they had someone here and they fixed it. And he done me a bloody good deal for another 2 years subscription. So I decided to stay with them. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do, or what you will do if you talk to somebody. If someone can convince you to do something, and that guy convinced me to stay with Talk. So I thought, okay, the very fact that they'd fixed the line just like that straight away, they'd come. I mean, that was quick. It was Sunday, it took a dump. By the Monday, they had someone round here, and I hadn't even phoned them. So maybe that bot's message had got passed on to somebody, but it worked. It's raining again. Daniel, well, and hope you are well. Did you ever have a P2600 engine code coolant pump A control circuit open come up on your Vito, as I do with my Vito? Well, I used to just put 530 semi-synthetic oil in it, but no, but I don't think I had a coolant pump or a water pump with any electronics on it, because mine was an 05 plate. But no, the only thing I really had go wrong with that Vito, which was a bit of a pain, was the camshaft sensor took a shit and it was difficult to start. And I changed it after enough times to sort of like having to wait 20 minutes before it would start. But no, I've never had that code. Nah. Sorry. I don't even know what the coolant pump is on them, whether it's actually the water pump or it's electric water pump. I don't know. But the Vito I had never had electric water pump. It was just a conventional water pump. The engine on Mondeo Mark IV 2.2 is the same one on the Transit. Some people say that is bulletproof. What's your opinion? It's a good engine. Them 2.2s are a good engine. I can't say anything bad about them because we had I'm sure we had one as a taxi, and apart from when it used to come in for a service, that's all we ever saw of it. It never went wrong. So I know it's only one engine, so I can't really say too much, but I haven't heard much wrong with them. So I can only assume that they must be pretty good. I have a 2.2 PSA engine in a Range Rover, and apparently they're very good. Yeah, I've seen the them Peugeot engines in a Range Rover. I lifted the bonnet. I got a friend who come around in a Range Rover something or other. I looked under the body, and it's like that's got the Peugeot engine in it. And I thought, they're bloody French. They get everywhere, didn't they? It's like, from what was a British car, now it's got a French engine in it. But yeah, I guess them Peugeot engines ain't done bad. All these more modern ones. They seem to have found their way in many different cars. What do you think to Ford discontinuing their smaller cars like the Fiesta? Well, I don't know really. I mean, the Fiesta's been going for like, I don't know how long. Longer than Noah's Ark's been built. It's been going for a long time. So maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time they actually designed something else, built something else. But with everything going on in the world, it's like they're all going sort of like these crossovers, these bloody hybrids, and you know, sports utility vehicles and all that sort of thing now. So I don't know where the world's going, but as far as the Fiesta goes, I think it's run its course. How long can they keep it going for? So, but it would be nice if they actually designed and built another car that was a follow-on from the Fiesta, but a totally new shape, something different, something that doesn't look like everything else. That would be interesting. Hello, Robert. 09 Mondeo 2 litre TDCI, 1500 to 2200 RPM, codes for MAF, an IT sensor, replaced with Napa MAF and cheap eBay. Code got better, but still a pain. Unplugging MAF. The trouble is with the airflow sensor, that can get flagged up if something else is wrong. This is the problem. You could have, you know, I'm not talking about the diesel, but on petrol cars, you can have an O2 sensor, a lambda sensor faulty, and it can give you an airflow sensor code, and you will change the airflow sensor even though it's the lambda sensor that's at fault. So yeah, it's going to be one of them problems, you know. You just have to slowly like work your way through it. And the trouble is, a lot of these cheap parts, aftermarket copies, sometimes they work great, but in some cases, or a lot of cases, they just don't work, and they just they just don't fix the problem. They kind of make it worse sometimes. Anyway, car fully serviced. Roman bronze Mark III 2 litre GT, engine bored out, 2.2 twin, 45, yes, Delort. It went like stink, terrorised the Oxmoor with it. Yeah, that's what I had. I had the 2.2, It was a single overhead cam, by the way. Single overhead cam, 2.2 Pinto, balanced and lightened crankshaft and flywheel. But I never had the 45 Auto carburetors. No, I had a single Weber carburetor. But you know what? Them 40s and 45 Autos, oh, they were like a dream. Back in the day, they were like a dream to have them carburetors. If I'd have had them carburetors, I'd have been going. That would have been bloody awesome. But things like that were too expensive. We could never afford stuff like that. Although I did have the 4-branch manifold. That was good. It would look nice anyway. I even, it's all coming back to me now. On my 1975 Cortina, I can't remember where I bought it. It was brand new. I bought a side pipe, a chrome side pipe, and it went down the passenger side. I put it down the passenger side sill, bolted it onto the outer sill, and it had a flexible section that went up to the manifold. And the girlfriend at the time got out the car and burnt her ankles on the exhaust, which didn't go down too well. But it was a nice sounding exhaust side pipe. Side pipe. It was nice. I liked it. Eventually, the flexible bit broke and all turned to shit, and I had to put a standard exhaust on it. The funny thing is, when I put a standard exhaust back in that car, it was actually quicker. Hello, Mick. Mk3 Cortina came out in 1970. 98 brake horsepower, top speed 100 miles an hour. Was that the 1600 Kent engine? Because they done the Pinto as well, didn't they, on the top model? Oh. Anyway. Hello, God, man. Hello, Hassan. How are you? Did you ever have the gearbox? You know, I was getting to it. I was coming to that. I did. They had if my memory serves me right, the gear lever, right? They had a screw thread, and you had to screw the thread into the gearbox inside the car, in the transmission tunnel. You had to screw it in, and when the threads went on your gear lever, you could be driving along. You could go to change gear, and you'd like yank the gear lever, and the whole gear lever would literally come out in your hand. That was actually a common thing. That happened a lot, you know. Well, you do know, didn't you? That did happen a lot. Yes, it happened to me as well. Don't worry, you weren't alone. That's happened to a lot of people. Paul, the work on my Mk3 was done by Ocelli Engineering in North Hants. Oh, so they've done it all up. These were the things back then when you got a car like that done up. Do you remember, like, the magazines back in the day? Street Machine was one of them. I think there was one called Fast Car. But I think Street Machine was like the big magazine of the day. And they'd have all these cars in them with their candies and metal flakes and pearls and all the paintworks under the sun. There were, you know what, there were cars like people would spray full-on murals on them, all over them. Back then, you know, there'd be so much like glitz and glamour on a lot of these cars. You know, you could go down to London and you'd see a Mark 4 or 5 Cortina with bloody metal flake, with metal chunks as big as like marbles. It's like, wow, you know, you'd turn around and you would look at these cars because they were a sight. But people done that back then. They customised their cars. That's what it was. It was custom car. there was Custom Car Magazine and Street Machine. And you'd get these magazines once a month, and you'd go through them and see what you could do to your car if you could afford it. Hello, Steve. How are you? Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Here at 2023, laptop charger died. Oh, does that mean you've got to buy a new one? Anyway, how are you, Steve? Good to hear from you. It's Wednesday night. Darren, my dad had a 1100 in bright yellow. 1100 is it? That's not a Austin Morris, is it? An Austin 1100, because they done like an Austin 1100 and an Austin 1300. They're like a bigger version of a Mini, or quite a bit bigger than a Mini. I know someone who had an Austin 1100, had it from brand new, and it rotted away. In fact, just while I got to this point here, because like the Austin 11 and 1300s were a competitor to the Mark III back then in the early 1970s. But I believe 1972, the Ford Cortina Mark III was the best-selling car of the year. So it did stand for something. Even though they've all rotted away, apart from the ones who collected them, it was the best-selling car of 1972. Steve, I never had a Cortina. First car was a Datsun 120Y. I remember them. They had like a high back window. They were a little booted saloon with a high back window. They weren't a bad looking car. I used to see them about quite a lot. I quite liked them. Never owned one, but you know, they were sort of like, they were still a nice looking car. Some people would disagree, but you know, there is a lot of cars that have just been totally lost and forgotten in time. Even, you know, I couldn't even list half the cars I used to see on the road. I wish I could. Maybe one day I will. I'll go through them and remember which ones I used to see all the time that have long gone. You just don't see them anymore. Even all the car shows me and Kevin go to, there are so many cars that are just, you just don't see them. I don't know if there's any left. I guess there must be one left of each car somewhere in a museum, but MSJ Cars, just a quick one off the subject. How crucial is the power shift oil change on Mark V Mondeo? I've never had any problems. We have one Mark V with a power shift in it, although it's not used as a taxi, it's like a private car. I don't believe the power shift oil has ever been changed in it. If it has, it's been a long time ago, and it's got no gearbox problems. But on them power shifts, I would say, from what I've heard on, especially on the Mark IVs, it's best to get them done. It's best to get that oil changed, because if it's not done, it can give you problems. So I would, it's expensive, I know, but I'd probably get it done. It could be sort of like save any gearbox problems later down the road. My friend took his Ford Focus 1.6 Mark II TDCi to Halfords, and they replaced his DPF but have over-torqued bolts and not mounted the heat shields correctly. There is a hole in the DPF where the bolt. Oh, so basically, someone's done the job who shouldn't have been doing the job. That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? I mean, let's face it. And I'll put it this way: I know a DPF is part of an exhaust system, but it's kind of like a very expensive part of the car. So whoever's fitting a DPF should have a good knowledge of what they're doing, because it's not just a case always. It's a bit like fitting a turbo. You don't just grab a new turbo and bang it on the car, do you? You've got to sort of like prime it with oil first. And it's the same with the DPF. You need to fit them things properly and make sure everything's right. Like the hose that comes off it, make sure that's clear where it goes into your pressure sensor. Make sure the sensors are going on nicely. Make sure nothing's over tightened or under tightened. You need somebody competent to do that kind of job. So it just sounds like it's been a bit of a bad job. Mike, hello. Early overhead cam engines, you could hear them coming down the road before you would see them banging. Yes, some of us, we used to just get them valve clearances just right. You know, we could, with the feeler blades. Inlet were 0.008 of an inch. Exhausts were 0.010 of an inch. There you go. You could do them a little bit tighter if you wanted to, just to stop them knocking. I own a Ford Focus 2 litre TDCi Mark II with 153,000 miles on it. It's been a very reliable car. Yeah, I think the Mark II Focus is pretty good. I know they have their problems, but like every car, but generally speaking, from what I've seen of them, they don't seem too bad. They don't have that many faults. 6-speed gearbox, flipping heck, you're lucky. Jacob, how's it going? It's going good. Been watching the videos for a while, but first time catching a stream. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, we don't pay the TV license here, so I have to make my own entertainment. That's basically what it comes down to. I've got to make my own TV. There you go. I'm still waiting for the bastards to knock on the door, but they haven't yet. Michael, hello. My Mark III alongside my Mark I Granada were the best cars I've ever owned. I currently drive a Focus 68 plate and not the same. The problem is, when you've experienced cars from the 70s and early 80s, they were fun. They were interesting. Even though they broke down and went wrong a lot, they were fun. It was interesting. I've always maintained that all these modern cars are all nice and good and smooth and silky and drive nice, but they haven't got the edge, have they? And they haven't got that fun factor. Or maybe it was just the times. Maybe it was just the times we lived in. Back then, life was more interesting than it is now. But I get it. I would love to go back to a Mark III Cortina and just drive down to the coast. Flipping heck. I remember I used to have a Morris Marina 1.8 twin carb, and it had an external clutch slave cylinder, and there's like a pin on it that used to come out, used to pop out, and you'd lose the clutch. And I'm on my way home from like Great Yarmouth, and I'm having to sort of like get on the side of the road underneath it to pop this pin back in the clutch to get it going again. It's like, that was the kind of shit you had to do back then, but it was like, loved it. Hello, Mimi. My dad had a Cortina in the 80s, rallied around 100 miles per hour with 3 kids and a wife. Not a seatbelt in sight. I don't even think seatbelts were a big thing back then. Mobile phones weren't even out, were they? I don't think. in fact, if you had a mobile phone back then, it would have been like a great big battery like that with a telephone on top, and you'd be carrying it around like that. Anyway, did anybody own the Executive Mark III? You know, the Cortina Mk3 E2000. You know, the glamorous one, the executive, the one that nobody could afford. Until the brakes caught fire on a family trip. I've experienced brake fade once. And I think, what car was that in? That might have been the Cortina. Although I'm thinking it more like the Marina. When the brake pedal goes, you use the brakes that much that the brake pedal goes hard and you just ain't stopping. Brakes caught fire on a holiday trip. Kay Jones, hello. I'm doing great. Thank you. Remember my Focus Mark 3 1.6 TDCi with coolant issue. Total bill was £1,270. Still the temperature gauge goes up and down, but at least everything works. Oh, well, I guess that's something. Yeah, but there again, on them Focuses, they do have instrument pack issues. So I've had to send many instrument packs away for various issues. They do all kinds of funny things when the soldered joints start to break. And I know I don't know what you've had done, but I know for sort of, it's a couple £100 and they'll repair it. ECU testing and AC Tronics, they both do a good job. But at least your car's working, so that's good. At least you can go somewhere without the engine overheating. Neville, hello. My dad had a Mark III 1.6 L Estate as a company car. L for luxury, although it was the base model. So there wasn't much luxury, was there? But it was still classed as luxury. After 1,100 miles, the cam belt broke on the A40 Western Avenue by the Target roundabout. Valves hitting pistons, yeah. But look on the bright side. You could have the head off one of them cars in 20 minutes, couldn't you? At least you could repair them engines pretty damn easily. And the cam belts, they were like a 10-minute job. Well, maybe a little bit longer, but I mean, everything on them was, you could get to everything. And it was simple. Paul, talking about hand-painted motors, I remember my dad went away somewhere to an industrial estate. It came back a light grey. I laughed at summer's day. You may laugh, but I'll tell you something. We used to use household paint from Homebase on the cars in the past. This mate I had was as a sprayer. You'd get the paint from Homebase and you'd spray it on a car and it'd look all right. It was like an enamel-based paint, but I mean, it done the job. It wasn't proper paint they use on cars, but it looked all right. Mike, my first driver was a Mark I Escort. It had 3 brake lines hammered back, only braked on one front wheel. Ditch job. You may think that's bad, but if anybody owns a Vauxhall Corsa, even the modern ones, you may well have come across, you might not even notice this, that your car might be pulling one way or the other. And when you're braking, because a lot of these Corsas have a big issue with the ABS pumps, where they will lose all the braking to either the left or the front wheel. And it'll only be braking on one side at the front. I've had loads of them. You've got to send the ABS pump off to get it fixed. You don't need to have rotten brake pipes and shit like that anymore. it just happens to have all the ABS units. Michael had one Mark 3, one Mark 4, and 4 Mark 5s. Flipping heck. Did you have the Crusader? That was like a nice model to have, wasn't it? But the Mark 5s, I've never had a Mark 5, but they were nice. I did like them. They were too expensive. My dad had a Mark 3 1.6 LSA as a company car in 1976. After 1100 miles, oh yeah, I've just done that, haven't we? How comes your ones can't come up twice? 087 Mail, hello. I had Mark 3 200E, Mark 4 2-litre GL, Mark 4 2-litre S, and Mark 5 2-litre GLS. Then I moved on to the Capri, which I still have two of a 2.8 and a 2-litre. Bloody hell. You've done well. You've got plenty of memories there, haven't you? Flipping Ada. 200E. Ooh. Very nice. Do you have photographs of all them? I hope so. I'll tell you something. I wish I had pictures of my old cars, but I don't. The only car I've got an actual photograph of which you could call an old car now, was my Scorpio. And that was a 1996. I've got one photograph of that car. I love the Mark 1 Granadas. My tax inspector aunt got a brand new one in the 70s. They were nice. Do you remember the hatchback one? I think it was a hatchback. Not the booty version, the one with the hatchback. No, the coupe. The Mark 1 Granada coupe. 2-door. Flipping awesome. Rose, hello. My Focus 2-litre TDCi 2016. Once I drove hard on highway, it shuts down. I started again and nothing. I get 228C. Well, if it's taking a dump when you're driving hard, it sounds like a fuel issue. It sounds like an injector's leaking off. Well, the best you can do is get the diagnostics read on a scanner or something. Plug it into your diagnostic port, get the codes read. If it's got low fuel pressure codes, then chances are it's one of your injectors leaking off too much fuel back to the tank. But you can't, you'd have to read the codes first to actually point you in the right direction. Mark, lad across the road had a Mark 3 Executive with leather seats. Because that was the top model, wasn't it? That was after 73 when they facelifted it and put the new dash in it. The Executive was like the top model. Yeah, if you had one of them, you'd be laughing. V8 Man 350. Hello. First car was a 1.6 Cortina. Lovely car. Happy days. Yep, those were the days. That's why I brought this subject up. Because it's like, I know it was a long time ago, but a lot of you have probably had these cars back in the day, all them years ago. So it's just nice to remember those times. Carrie, hello. Owned a 2-litre GXL at 17-inch Ross dials in electric blue with black vinyl roof. Cost £300. Insurance cost me £320. Got written off, T-boned by a Cavalier which pulled out a junction. Oh, sad. Electric blue, that sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, the Ross dials were sort of like they were like the sporty wheels in them cars, weren't they? The Ross style wheels. You know what I had in my car? They weren't Rostars because I had the poverty version. I had the L, the I had the basic model, but I bought a set of California Chromes, 13-inch though, 13-inch California Chromes, but they were lovely until they went rusty. Hello, Mark. TV licensing want to explain all the repeats. I get a lot of TV licensing letters. I don't have a TV, as the TV doesn't really entertain me. I just bin them like you, and when they eventually turn up, if they turn up, I'm not going to let them in. No, I mean, you're not supposed to even open the door to them, are you? Or if you do, you just say, no, not today, and shut the door in their face. But there again, if you kind of like want to waste their time, you might want to keep them talking and then just tell them you're not interested. You could kind of say to them, yeah, I'm thinking about spending some money today. I could buy a TV license. That's what I'd like to spend my money on. What can you tell me about the TV license? And then you could drag them out for like 20 minutes, couldn't you? And then you could turn around and say, yeah, no, not really, see ya. And shut the door. If you wanted to be a right arse to them. Yeah. Hello, Mark. Put the TV licenses letters with deceased return to sender back in post box. They probably wouldn't even read them. Roy, I've got a Mark 5 Cortina gear. Just had a full nut bolt resto with full leather interior. I decided to drop in a 2.8 V6 Cologne. Oh, very nice. Yes, the Mark 5. That's when they brought like, yeah, they went more onto like, well, I think the gear model was went on the Mark 4, didn't they? They brought them over to the Mark 5. That's when gear was becoming a thing as like the high model. That sounds very nice. For the do they have like heated seats in them? I don't really know, but I'm kind of gathering they probably do. Ronnie Barker, open all hours. Hello. When you change your internet supplier, stop the debit. Just found out, been paying 2 suppliers, BT. Yeah, oh yeah, you've got to stop it yourself, because if you don't, they'll keep charging you. Mark, sometimes it's the wire in the house. Someone's routed where it can get worn down. Yeah, I know. I had a bad wire coming. There's like a junction box where it comes into the house, and then it goes off to an exchange unit. And it was a break in the wire between the exchange and the house. But there was 2 wires, so they had a backup wire. So they managed to just switch it over. I had a Mondeo Mark 5 2017. The timing belt snapped 2 times. Flipping heck, you were unlucky. I had to pay for 2 new engines. That's why I came back to Mark 4. Seemed to be more reliable for me. Bloody hell. I'll tell you something, you wouldn't get an engine now for a Mark 5. You'd be very lucky. They seem to be like rarer than rocking horse shit. Where is your garage? I would be more than confident to come there if I have some problems with the car. I'm in, we're in Alconbury, outside of Huntingdon. It's on like a main road thing, so there's not actually an address there. It's just like Alconbury. Opposite RAF Alconbury. You can't miss it. There's big yellow signs everywhere. Steve's Car Sales. Meher Rolls. My Ford Focus 2-litre TDCi 2016. When driving on highway, my car suddenly shut. Oh, we've done that one. I'm going to have to call time in a minute because I always say I'm going to run for an hour, but it's like running on always go for like half an hour extra. Mk3 Mondeo, harder steering and a little grind bump when turning left at standstill and sometimes when driving on the road and slightly, but if you mean if Mk3 Mondeo, if you mean you've got your steering wheel like that and you're driving down the road and you try and turn like that to the left and there's like a little notch in the steering like that, like a little bump you've got to get over, that's your steering rack. Done loads of them. Best thing you can do with that is get a new steering rack and replace the oil. I think that there's something gets worn in the rack. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I've had loads of them. And the oil goes really grey and shitty where it gets contaminated. Something sort of like grinding. Something gets messed up in the rack. And you get that little notch and you try and steer left or right and you can't quite do it. You've got to go like that, like a little notch to get past. Yeah, just get a new steering rack, but make sure you replace all the oil properly and drain all the old oil out. Get rid of all that grey oil it's contaminated. Errol, 10 times honey ribs and 10 times chips, Chinese challenge food. Okay. Mike, had a Mexico Escort, my first turbo. You had to get her up to 60 miles per hour before the turbo kicked in. It was like getting a boot up the jacksie, but wow, what a motor. Super. Tibbs, money no object. What Cortina would you buy? Oh, blimey. I would still go for a Mk3, but it would have to be the GT version. I'm not even sure about a 2000D. I don't really sort of like care about the luxury side of it. It's just like I would always wanted the GT, but I'll still get the Mk3. And colour, don't know. I don't know. It would probably be a blue, like the one I used to have. I love the blue. The blue colour I did have because it was a custom paint job. And my God, it was a lovely. You could see the colour, you know, in pearl, you can see the colours change, especially when the sunlight hits it. So yeah, I would have one hell of a fancy paint job done. I'd have the best pearl you could buy, and maybe spray a bit of metal flake in with it while we're on the subject. Lee had a silver Mark 5 Cortina 1.6L estate. Changed out VV carb for Weber. Same issue with void bushes. I found that pattern parts lasted better. Still have the tool. Oh, you still got it. Now to Pioneer TS indoor. Oh, Pioneer speakers. Yeah. Very nice. I never had an estate car, but I guess they were the more practical cars to have. Nigel, love your channel. Well, thank you. I'm about to call time anyway because it's like 9:30. I've been going for. I've been going for about an hour and a half now. I would love to go on for like 3 hours, but I don't think I can manage it. No, I've got to go to bed and get up for the next day. I've got another bloody day at work, and if I never had to get up and go to work in the morning, I'd probably go all night. I wouldn't give a shit. Hello, Nigel. After 4 angle boxes, all rusty, I bought a Mark 1 Cortina GT. Then I saved up to buy a Lotus Mark 2. Great fun. Whoa. Yes. I used to see the Lotus Cortinas, especially when you went to the seaside. And they look, you know, it's ones that have been done up with fancy wheels, and you know, they looked so cool. And I'm going back many years, but my God, they look good. And I thought, God, I'd love to have one of them. Never had the money though, so I was out of luck. Adam, my first car when I passed my test in 1991 was a Ford Cortina Mark 5 1.6. Was a really good car and solid throughout for a Y-Reg car, which was a 1982 model before the Ford Sierra came out. Yeah. But once you got sort of like the end of the Mark 5 line, I mean, they had ironed out most of the problems. They had facelifted them all, and I guess they were sort of like a pretty robust car by that point. So I know that the Mark 5s and that they suffered with rust as well, obviously. But you know, I did like the Mark 5. They were sort of like a good car, like a solid looking car. But I never owned one. I wish I had. Michael, my dad had to hold down the reverse on his Cortina. Oh, in case it jumped out. I know somebody who put his car in reverse when he was going forward, and he smashed the gearbox to pieces. That was in a Morris Marina though. Nigel had a Mark 3 though. Cheers. Dave, my dad had a 1600 Cortina. When the engine poked up, he replaced it with I see what you mean. He replaced it with a 3 litre, and the battery had to go in the boot as there was no room under the bonnet. Flipping out, that must have been a conversion and a half. That would have taken some thought fitting that in. I bet it went well though. Gobbler the Gook, hello. Had a Mark 3 2-door GT. Ooh, 2-door, eh? And the rear windows were held in by bonded on hinges and locking clamps. They had a tendency to fail and the window would fly off. Hello, Steve. Timestamp. Yes, yes, indeed. It's getting on. Hello, Vivian. Back home now. We'll watch and catch. Well, thanks, Vivian. Everybody knows that's your photograph. That's your Cortina on the thumbnail to this video. So thanks for that. By the way, it looked like you were at some kind of seaside resort, parking up in one of them gravel car parks. What was your car? You know, because I can't see properly in that photo. Was it orange or was it yellow? It looks yellow, but they did do the orange ones as well. Anyway, Vivian, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for the picture. It's earned its place in history now. Your first car. Head gasket went kaput. So new remanufactured head along with new water pump and belt. Thermostat was changed recently as well. Cause of problem was water pump failure and head got down. Yeah. That's the problem with some cars. One sniff of overheating and they'll they'll either do the head gasket, but there's a higher chance they'll actually crack the head. You're lucky if you get away with a head gasket change. Expensive though. 2000E, yes, own one. Oh, do you do? But not a 2-litre Pinto engine anymore. 5.2 V8 Dodge. Bloody hell. Did you put that in yourself? Jesus Christ. That must be mental. You must take that to shows like that. You must take that to car shows and show that car off. Because that's one of a kind now. Flipping 5.2 litre V8. Bloody Nora. In a Cortina. That is certainly something. Ricardo, good evening to you. My Mark IV 2-litre TDCi Mondeo is emitting a diesel smell within the cabin via the footwell air vents. What could be the issue? Well, you might have something leaking, some diesel leaking under the bonnet somewhere. I'll check for any leaks. The only other thing is there's a slight exhaust leak on the manifold area or turbo area, or one of the diesel injectors is leaking past the washer and the fumes are coming out under the bonnet and the fumes are going into your air vents. And if it is the injectors that are leaking, you need to get that sorted quickly, because the gases that come out of that are highly poisonous and they'll kill you very quickly. Believe me, I know. I've breathed enough of that shit in and it doesn't do you any good. Hello, Mick. My Vicky Vito 05, not always letting key turn. I think it's steering lock. Well, I've not had that issue, but I don't know, because they're a different type of ignition, aren't they? Yeah, I couldn't really tell you on that one. They're like an electric ignition, aren't they? You got to put if it's the same key I had, it's like an electronic key with an infrared bit in it that you put it in and it kind of activates it as soon as you put the key in. So yeah, I would probably look up online for that, because I've not had that problem on them, especially on my video. I've never had that problem, but don't know. You'll have to sort of like look it up, see if anyone else has had them problems. 2000E, yes, someone now. Yep. David had a Mark IV gear with the 2.3 V6 on an auto box. Loved it. Good times on the doors, minted. Wood trims on the door. And you know what? They were proper wood trims, weren't they? They weren't plastic. They were the real McCoy. I'll tell you, looking at going back again years ago on my Mark III, my L model. This is my 1975 model. It was the basic. It was the L model, but L stood for luxury, but there was no luxury. But I went to if you go to scrap, there were the days when you could go to a scrap yard and you could just walk in. Didn't need to wear your bullshit yellow jacket. You could just walk in wearing your jogging jeans or whatever you're wearing, and you could just rummage your way around the scrap yard and unbolt stuff yourself off the cars. And back then, it was easy to go to a scrap yard and get all them wood trims and door panels and anything you wanted. And I got a load of them wood trims for my car and all the door panels. And I remember sanding them all down and varnishing them all and fitting them on my car. And I was really proud because they looked very nice when it was all done. But you know what? It even reminds me now, something that I've done that was really shit. You know, window tinting. I have done a bit of window tinting. I've still got rolls of window film at work. So I'd done it for a while. I've got the proper Johnson's window films. But long before I'd done that, you know, they used to sell window tint at like auto part shops, car accessory shops. This was the shit stuff, the stuff that didn't heat shrink, because window film heat shrinks. The film they sold in these auto part shops you couldn't heat it up to shrink it. So the alternative was to get a can of window tint spray. The trouble is, as soon as the windows got wet and you touched it with your finger, it would smear. Anyway, I'm not even going there. This is just shit they sold back, things you would try out. Anyway, Roy, no heated seats. Mine was the brown velour, but couldn't find the material, so went full leather. The gear was the top model you could buy, and Crusader was left over bits of the gear model. I did see a lot of Crusaders about. But yeah, if you had a gear, that was the pinnacle, wasn't it? Although it's not today, is it? I mean, gears seems to have sort of like fallen down a few notches, because now it's gear and gear X and gear something else X. But yeah, very good. So the good thing about them cars was, even if you had the lower spec model, all you had to do was go to a breaker's yard if you could find a higher spec model and go and nick all the bits out of it. Well, you'd pay for them at the scrapyard, obviously, unless you could fling them over the hedge. But I mean, you could get the bits. There were so many parts back then. You could kit your car out of all the fancy panels and everything, all the seats and all that. You know, you could find them quite readily back then. You can't now, but Goron, I can't say your name. Anyway, thank you very much for all your support. No problem. You're welcome. Sleep tight. Another glass of this and I'll be bloody out like a light. I don't know about sleeping tight. C2 row 1. Hello. Been trying to get the front bumper off. I've removed the clips in the wheel arch, but looks like something else holding it on. Can't see a bolt on inside of arch. Is this on a Mark 5 Mondeo? It sounds like a Mark 5 Mondeo. If you get the wheel arch liners and there's 3 like clips down the inner edge of the wheel arch liner, and then you can get your hand inside the wheel arch liner up to where the wing meets the bumper. There's a little plastic clip. You'll feel it. If you get your fingers on it and twist it and then pull it, and it will probably come out. That's what it is.
So you only drink pound live streams?
I do. I only drink this on live streams.
Why? Oh.
He's happy. He's found something in the fridge that's to your approval.
Oh. I think I'm actually getting like.
Yeah, Mark 5 Mondeo. Yeah, where the wing meets the bumper along the two, where the bumper edge meets the wing like that. There's halfway along. There's a little plastic clip. It's behind the wheel arch liner. You can get your hand in behind the liner, and if you get your fingers up there, you'll feel it. And you've got to try and twist it and then pull it and rip it out. It's a little stupid plastic clip. If you can get that out of the way, then your wing will come apart, will come off. Your bumper will come away from the wing. Not all of the Mark 5s had that clip fitted. All of the taxis we got from 2015 to 2017 never had that clip. The 68 plates we got did have the clip. So you're unlucky. But once you get it out, you fling it. Just fling it behind you or put it in the bin. Get rid of it. You don't need it.
Dad, can I get global red rock?
Sorry?
Can I get global red rock?
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to the cash for tomorrow, so.
How much?
£50. I've got like 47 in my account and then 50 in mine.
That's cool. I'll pay you back. Mike, hello. My old Mark II GT Cortina estate needed replacement rear doors, so I went down to Scrappy and bought 2. No, problem was they were off a non-estate. Oh, so they didn't fit. I'll tell you something, they'd be worth something today if you kept them. Been trying to get front bumper off and have the root. Right, we've done that one. Right, I'm going to call time, guys. Pietro Mass, please, you are. No, I'm not. I'm not the best mechanic. I've just been blagging it all these years. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I'm going to call time, guys. Thank you very much for everybody who's attended the live stream tonight. It's been great. I will try and do some live streams for other cars. I'll try and do like a Granada night and stuff like that. Maybe if I can even get Kevin to come along, because he's really good with classic cars and all bloody cars really. He's very knowledgeable, so he'll be able to explain a lot of different things. But anyway, that's it for tonight, and hopefully I'll be back next Wednesday with another live stream. So thank you, everybody. Have a good one out there, and good evening and good night.